Why does everyone in Bitcoin currently feel so stuck, anxious, and afraid, especially with those falling Bitcoin prices? With today's guest, Fix, an actual therapist, we are talking about why this has nothing to do with the Bitcoin price and everything to do how the fiat system has broken you since you were born into this world. No matter if you are 10 years old, 50 years old, or 80 years old, you have been conditioned all your life to be broke, anxious, and afraid of the future because we live in a fiat system. And now with Bitcoin, we finally have the chance to stand ourselves on sovereign ground. Fix, the therapist, has such an amazing perspective on Bitcoin I've never heard anywhere else. And I've heard a lot of perspectives on Bitcoin over the last 700 plus episodes of this podcast. So enjoy. Before we get into all the things, maybe give us some brief overview of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
So I am a psychotherapist, a couples therapist, not like, the typical person that's going to be talking about Bitcoin in public, right? Like a psychotherapist. And basically, I first discovered Bitcoin in 2013-ish. It's a very standard story, right? Should have, could have, would have bought it, didn't buy it because I had to verify my identity, and my wallet was the other side of the room. And so I just couldn't be arsed to get up off the couch and go, just verify my identity. But I eventually got into it in 2017. My first job was as a stockbroker. And so I knew a thing or two about trading. And so I just thought of it as a trade. And then slowly but surely, I just, was consuming all of the Bitcoin, podcast books that I could get my hands on just because I loved it. It was just like a hobby. It just really lit me up, because I have an economics background. I follow macroeconomics for fun, just like I follow rugby for fun. And then lo and behold, I kind of had this inkling that, there really is a deep psychological element to Bitcoin, right? And how it impacts people's nervous systems, like the fiat financial system, why Bitcoin is better ground for a nervous system than fiat. And so I first just wrote an article, then I wrote a second article, and then I was like, wait, hold on a second. I actually think, I've got something different to say than most Bitcoiners. And then here I am, right? Like 6 months later, you're the third Bitcoin podcast I've done. You know what I mean? So all these podcasts that I listen to, here I am now as a guest, which is amazing. And I'm kind of pinching myself at the same time.
It's super interesting. What is this element that you kind of discovered that most people are not talking about, this kind of psychology element that you see with Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, so I'm primarily, so I'm like a somatic attachment psychotherapist. So what that means is, firstly, the somatic part is, the body keeps the score. Some of your listeners may be familiar with that book, that concept, that I kind of translated that into Bitcoin parlance so that Bitcoiners could understand it. Is your nervous system is the first ledger. Your nervous system is the first ledger of truth. Your nervous system is basically recording every single thing that happened to it, and it records it as the truth of the experience. No narrative on top of it, right? No story about how you should interpret it, what you should feel about it. That's secondary. So one of the things that fascinates me about Bitcoin is actually very accurate to the very, very first ledger we ever know, which is our body, our nervous system. So
it's like,
do you want me to expand on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you think about from the moment you're born, you're having good things happen to you, scary things happen to you, exciting things happen to you. Your nervous system records every one of those experiences. And then it's determining, how do I need to adapt myself to survive in this world that I didn't choose to be born into. I didn't like get to go, hey, I'll choose to be born into this family. I'll choose to be born into this financial system. I'll choose to be born into this nation, this culture, right? And so you're basically plopped into this world, right? Again, into systems, right? You're firstly you and your mom, right, inside the womb. Then, like when you're really little, obviously you're born into the fiat financial system. And so all of these, like if your mother, let's say, fingers crossed, is a good enough mother, when your mother isn't a good enough mother, you have attachment injury, right? And no mother is perfect. So we all end up with some degree of anxiousness, avoidance, disorganizedness in relationship with others because of our attachment system. But then we're born into a wider system. What Bitcoiners would be more interested, right, is we're born into the financial system as a mother of sorts, right? That it promises to care for us, right? And especially here in America, right? Like, where I'm from Ireland, but I live in America. It promises we've the right to pursue happiness. I'm going to look after you. You can, it's the land of opportunity, right? It promises to cradle us with all this opportunity, but in reality, so with the one hand, it's promising to look after us and help us thrive. But with the other hand, it's debasing our value, our labor, our savings, our wealth, right? Through inflation, printing money. And so one of the things, the analogies I use is the fiat financial system is similar to a not good enough mother. And we all end up then having to adapt and develop character strategies and protector parts to survive in this financial world. So just to use the attachment analogy, some of us are going to be anxiously attached. We're going to work really hard to try and get love from the financial system, right? I'm going to start companies. I'm going to go get my MBA. I'm going to work real hard, right? And no matter how hard you work, right, we know that you're going to lose everything in the end. You cannot outrun fiat debasement forever. Even if you survive, are your kids going to survive? Are your grandkids going to survive? We know almost no one survives 3 generations. Some of us withdraw. Some of us get cynical and withdraw from the system. Some of us just collapse completely. And so basically, you could look at the way every single human being is surviving in the financial system as through an attachment lens, and their behavior actually, every single person's behavior actually makes sense what they're doing because they're living inside a not good enough financial mother.
This is, I definitely have never thought about that. Like, that's really interesting. And it also makes a lot of sense. If you think about the fiat world, and if you think about the people living up in a world where you get debased, where things naturally get more expensive, you always have that feeling that you have to keep up and you have to get better. So 2%, 3% raise every year is barely keeping up now. So you actually need like a 10% raise. You need to get, you have to start a side hustle. You have to make this and that. And you're actually forced to do multiple things just to keep up with how the world is working. So it's like, would a person that is getting born into a fiat world be differently wired and have a different relationship with money than a person that now maybe in 10, 20, 30 years gets born, where there's already Bitcoin there, where there's more security. Maybe he gets born into a Bitcoin family that might still, there's some fiat there. But I don't know if for example, there's now a 30, 35-year-old guy that is now getting a baby this year, and he tries to get this kid a financial security, not only with like actual like numbers, but also with the feelings of not having the attachment feeling, but having the security. Would that already make a difference in the nervous systems of a kid, of a person, just having Bitcoin versus having a fiat standard in the family?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely, right? So if you think about, you know, by the way, this is a big part of the book that I'm, you know, in the editing process now, should be published by the end of the year. But the working title is Sovereign Ground. So here's a basic idea that in order for a human organism, a nervous system to thrive, right, not just survive, we have to have solid ground, right? We need ground that we can rely on. So in primary relationship with another, that's secure attachment, right? Your good enough mother is there for you, available for you, and is responsive. And because that relationship is solid, it doesn't create codependency that you're like, you can't function in the world. You stand upon the solidity of that relationship. And then because the relationship is ossified, solid, right? Then you can go out into the world, secure inside yourself, have agency, and create value for the world. I always have this image, a little kid in a kitchen, there's these sliding doors that opens up into this great garden with lots of flowers and bees and like butterflies, and right, like it's just a beautiful garden. The kid, 2-year-old kid, is in the kitchen with its mom. Because it's so solid in its relationship with its mom, it can crawl out across the little decking and out into the garden and explore. It can go from surviving to thriving because it stands upon the foundation, the granite of its secure bond with its mom. Okay. Fiat financial system, again, just imagine, right, what it is basically the ground is not solid, right? It's just like earthquakes, quicksand. Some people are getting rewarded over here because they're close to the printer. Some politician made a decision, it's COVID, let's help all the small business owners, like why them versus me, right? Like, you know, it's just like, it's constantly unfair. The ground is constantly shaking. You're busy surviving, adapting to your environment. How do you go out into the garden and actually create without some kind of like adaptation that isn't your true organic self, right? That you've had to adapt to survive in the hopes of thriving. Let's say then we have Bitcoin where the money can't be debased. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, right? We actually get what Jeff Booth says, right? Where all of the extra gains in productivity because of advances of technology actually creates deflation so that your buying power is constantly increasing, right? Now you're standing on ground that is so solid in your financial world, which, you know, is a system we are all born inside, right? Now you can actually make sovereign choices, right? Sovereign choices, not just low time preference choices, right? Like how do I survive today? How do I make sure I make enough money? Or like, you know, just give up on the system, like, you know, forget the system. It's so unfair. I'm not participating. All those choices and decisions that people make actually make sense in a financial system. Whereas once we have Bitcoin more as the base layer of our financial system, then I say, like, a child gets to grow up where, what is it that I love to do? I stand on the solidity of the financial world. It's going to be one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin tomorrow. My purchasing power increases. I don't have to have it. My attachment injuries are not very big with the financial system. It's solid. Now I can get busy creating value in the world. I'm choosing what I want to do with my time. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the way I think about it.
It's fascinating. I'm thinking now about the time that I chose to go out of my way, and with not a lot of securities, just jumping into this podcasting world. I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but I had the podcast at around, like, I don't know, 300, 400 subscribers. There was no financial security at all for me to rely solely on that, and I still quit my job. And a major reason for that was because I worked 6 years beforehand already, and every month I saved something in Bitcoin. Before, it was not always Bitcoin, but I always saved something, and Bitcoin was then the majority of it. And so I already had the security of, I have a few months, maybe even like a year or so left to live, even if I make no income whatsoever. And this was the thing that allowed me then to go ahead and pursue this. Is this the ground that you're also talking about, where if you have something to rely on, you're like, okay, even if I fuck up, I will still be okay because I have the security of my ground that will catch me and will not make me fall on my face.
Exactly. But by the way, one other thing, I used to do a lot of improvisational dance, and it sounds weird, but dance was my favorite self-development vehicle for many, many years, right? Like, how do you notice what you're feeling, express it through movement? How do you relate in with another person and in systems? One of the things that I always found fascinating with dance is your feet know how to find the ground. You're like, just, we're millions, this is millions of years old, right? This organism, right? When you jump in the air, you don't have to tell your feet where the ground is. You don't actually have to make some kind of conscious decision to, like, okay, I got to make sure my feet know where the ground is. Your feet know where the ground is. Your feet want solid ground. If the ground is ossified, if the ground is solid, if the ground is stable, if the base layer is solid, it cannot be changed, then all the layers above the ground can have flexibility, flow, and create, right? Now, so yes, if you have ground that you can rely on, so in your, look, I don't know your exact circumstances, but let's say at the very least, something in your nervous system, you've been in Bitcoin for a while, you've been saving in Bitcoin, you're doing your fiat mining job for the previous 6 years, right? Something doesn't feel right about it. You have a glimpse of a world through the savings you've done in Bitcoin, even though you don't have enough money. Something in your nervous system, even if unconscious, recognized, here's a new world, a new system that actually feels solid, like on a somatic level, right? Like my chest, my stomach, this is actually solid ground, right? And it was solid enough for you, even though you didn't have a huge runway of months or years of money, that I want to start to transition more fully into that world. And it's solid enough that I can actually make a really big, low time preference decision, right? That I'm going to invest in my future self's happiness, sovereignty, like actually feeling like I'm giving value to the world, even though I don't have fiat security, which my nervous system already knows is so fragile. That's the way I would hear your story.
Is there because Bitcoin is still very volatile, not only measured in US dollars, but just like in pure purchasing power. Does that still make it more difficult to see the ground as Bitcoin as something stable, because we're still in the discovery phase of Bitcoin and not in the end game?
Well, so look, volatility is a feature, not a bug, right? Like let me explain it first. like with love and relationship, right? When you get in a relationship, the volatility of your relationship is a feature, not a bug, right? Like when two people that love each other, right, that are secure, like are attached to each other emotionally, they're going to have moments, because you're attached, because you're so important to each other, you're going to have moments where it looks like you're not there for me, or it looks like you're disappointed in me, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to protest in a way that's going to hurt the other person, and it's going to feel really bad. You're going to enter a period of volatility, whether that's an hour, a day, a month, a year, right? Hopefully as little time as possible. The real work, the proof of work of relationship, is your ability to go from that volatility and repair, right? Like to repair, hodl, right? And get back to, we are together, I'm there for you, you're enough for me, right? Again and again and again and again. You have to do the work. In relationship, the proof of work is repair. It's not being perfect. It's not performing worth. It's not like I'll just be a better self, you be a better self, and we'll be two better selves together. You cannot, that is staking. Relationship, the proof of work is you can repair this connection where we are there for each other now in the way we couldn't be there for each other when we were disconnected. Okay. Bitcoin. When it comes to holding Bitcoin, right? The proof of work of holding Bitcoin is how you survive the volatility, right? Is how you survive the volatility, right? It doesn't come for free, right? Like in order to hodl Bitcoin, you have to work really hard. You have to expend calories of stress. It's a bear market. There's like a 40% downturn in a week. There's like, right, like when is it going to go up? Why is it taking 2 years of flat, right? Like you're just are going to have to, you have to fight your ego. You have to fight your greed and fear impulses. You got to stop your monkey mind trying to get busy and trying to leverage and trying to be too smart for your own good. Your ability to hodl through the volatility is what builds conviction, and you have to do that proof of work. So look, it is a practice. And so, of course, as you, like shows like yours do, the more you can understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin philosophically, right, at the deepest level, that actually settles your nervous system, right, into, I know what it is I'm holding, and I can do the work to live through the volatility.
Might be a side question, but it just popped up in my head. Is there a relationship between bad money and high divorce rates?
Well, absolutely, right? Again, well, so, as you know, sorry, one sec. Yeah, so when the currency is debasing all the time, that means, as you know, each individual nervous system is under stress, and at the very least low-grade anxiety, and it also makes us feel ashamed. This is the other, really important concept. You don't just feel like injured and hurt in an attachment way, an emotional bonding way with the financial system. You end up feeling ashamed too, because like it's your own fault that you're not doing better. Why aren't you making more money? And again, anybody that feels shame, people move to the compass of shame, attack other people, attack ourselves, withdraw from the system, or deny there's a problem. So every single person in the financial system is having low-grade anxiety at best. Even the people that are supposedly making it, right? Because they have to freaking keep working to protect their assets, right? Like they can't just leave their money in the currency. They have to like continually be working, not only whatever they do to deliver value to the world, but then to be protecting their money, right? Then not only so they're anxious, but whether they become avoidant or pursuing, Then also, they're also ashamed. Everyone is ashamed. And most people, shame is so painful that they'll do anything not to feel the shame. So then they move to attack other, attack self, withdraw, or deny there's a problem. Okay, let's then put that in a couple, a relationship. The money is debasing. Houses keep getting more expensive. Groceries keep getting more expensive. My salary increases are not keeping up with asset price increases, the real inflation rate that matters for families, right? The cost of education is increasing. That a couple then gets together, and now they're going to try and build a long-term, low time preference relationship with each other. They're going to try and build a cathedral on top of ground like that. How are they going to build their relationship and family cathedral on ground that is like, God, earthquakes, volcanoes, just the unfairness of it and the instability? And this is the real heartbreak for me. Every single person, what they're doing to survive that instability makes sense. We may like, the way I survive, like I'm an entrepreneur, I overwork. Like, yeah, people like me are awesome. Look, a person out like that is given up and is just collecting unemployment. They're on food stamps. Ugh, terrible person. Listen, whatever people do to survive this system, it makes so much sense because it is a constant blood-sucking vampire on all of the people that live inside of it. Especially for relationships, right? That's why there are less people having getting into long-term relationships, or more cynicism about relationships, because women end up feeling bad about themselves, men end up feeling bad about themselves. And then they're going to try somehow from that cynicism to actually make long-term relationship work on ground that's unsteady. It's brutal. It's brutal. So that's getting started. And then keeping it going. No wonder people are getting divorced, because they're living in a system where the house always wins and it's always stacked against them.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relai to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relai, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups, because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. You get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. That's crazy. I want to show you something because it confused me when I saw that. I will quickly put that up here. Where is it? I think here it is. This was, I have no clue where this data comes from, but I keep hearing divorce rates. And I have an Indian girlfriend. And so I get, and she's actually like properly from India on only like 2-3 years now in Austria. So I really get the culture from her, and she and like how they think and all of that. And it was fascinating when I first heard that India has a very low divorce rate, like super low. And the more I get to know her, I understand because it's like you can't divorce. Like it's just not. Divorce is just like such a social concept that's like so bad if that happens. It's almost like someone died. So it's like there's a lot of more things to it than just like money, and like of course like there's like social things. But I was just like so curious to see states that are like like in the United States or like in Portugal or like in France, or like there's a lot more wealth than like in the States. There's like Nigeria, India, Pakistan. Like it was interesting for me to see that like wealthier countries even have a higher divorce rate than the ones that are suffering more. I mean, they're all operating on the same fiat system.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's the whole thing. But does this make sense, or is this like
Well, here's what makes sense to me about this. Well, I mean, again, if I was to put off the top of my head, like, who knows, right? But let me say, if I was to put something on it, right? Like when you have a certain amount, like if you have a certain action set available to you to survive in the financial system, right? I have this concept called fiat relationships. And, just like there's fiat food, fiat relationships is basically you end up trying to perform in your relationships. You're going to perform, look how good I am. I deserve this relationship because of my goodness or because of my status. I'm going to pick a partner because of their goodness in some way, their status. And then two people now, we're going to try and maintain our status, get together. They're not ready to, I said earlier, the proof of work of relationship is the ability to do repair over and over and over again. Like it's a practice for the rest of your life. The low time preference thinking that fiat creates inside of you, and then the richer the country, more deeply embedded in the belly of the beast, the nervous systems within that country are, then when they go to relationship, they're expecting satisfaction now. I want my M&Ms now. I want my pizza now. I want relationship happiness now. Right? They're not willing to do the low time preference work needed to make love and relationship work. Whereas, and then look, yes, like obviously you see India, I work with an awful lot of, because I primarily see people in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, as a couples therapist. I work with a lot of Indian couples, right? And like, yeah, culturally, divorce is just not one of the options on the menu. Or like for divorce to get on the menu is pretty extreme, right? And that's even the elite that end up working for Apple and Google and all the AI companies in San Francisco, right? So most likely, I would say that the more you think you can make it in the fiat financial system, the more prone you are to have low time preference thinking that gets you this mindset. Then in my relationships, I want happiness now. I want contentment now. We should be looking like that other couple on Instagram now. And when shit hits the fan and you have to do the work of repair, you're not built inside of you to do the work needed, right? Just like you're not with a fiat mindset, you're not going to be able to hold Bitcoin, and you ain't going to be able to make a long-term relationship work.
And so it also ties into so many different things that we teach in Bitcoin, like the low time preference, the proof of work concept, the concept also that chaos and volatility is actually a good thing. We want price discovery. Like nature is not linear. It's like it's exponential here and there. It goes up and down. It's chaotic. Like the nature of human beings and the nature of the world, I think, is chaotic and unstable. And so it's interesting how this all ties back together of if you put in the proof of work and you decide the low time preference move now, in the long run it will run out. And it's like the same with relationship and like money and like business and like everything you can touch it. It's really fascinating how you could almost make psychology courses around the Bitcoin ethos.
Well, yeah, and that's, but obviously that's what I'm hoping to do, is to help people, to help people on the deeper emotional level, psychological level, self-development level, do the work, right? There's some fundamental things that you need in order to be able to do the work. And the first most important thing is what I call reflexive participation. And reflexive participation is, the first thing is you have to know you're affected. You just have to know you're affected, right? Am I affected by living inside a financial system? Do I have attachment injuries, right? Like if you're, I'll give you a silly, just everyday example. If someone cuts you off in traffic, right? And you're mad at that person, do you know you're affected, right? The first thing, can you know you're affected? Yes, I'm affected, right? Can you describe how you're affected, right? I'm angry, right? I'm in story of other, that the other person is an asshole, right? Can you actually feel it, right? Could you actually take a moment to feel, oh, Jesus, I'm angry. Look, can I feel the sensation of being angry, right? Can I express it? Ideally not shouting at them now, right? We're talking about getting to know yourself, right? So that you can have agency and sovereignty in your life, right? So can I express it, like the anger, right? And then, of course, can I know what's underneath it? Anger is only a signpost emotion. If I'm angry, there's something that I'm not getting, and not getting it hurts. It's actually a vulnerable experience, right? It's really important to me to be considered, to be seen, to be, valued as a human being. And when I don't feel that, it actually really hurts. I feel powerless. It's really scary for me. Oh, okay. So now we actually know how you're affected, right? Now we know the truth of the actual ledger. We know what the freaking transaction really is, right? All of the details of the transaction. Now we got to settle the transaction. Right? I'm in the place where I'm not seen, I'm not valued, I can feel powerless, where I have this nervous system of mine, this organism has a sensitivity to, that I have wounding throughout my life. Where does this come from in my personal history, my ancestral history, right? What are the archetypal factors? What is the larger social factors that would make me feel this way? And then we mush all that together in a big pot. Now I can take right creative action. And when I say right creative action, to change it to Bitcoin language, I can make a sovereign choice about what I do next. I can have agency where now I choose, not from just survival, reactive, let me chase that guy home and give him a peace of mind in his own driveway and risk getting shot. Now I can, what would be the best way for me to look after me? It won't be talking to him. Who's he? I don't care. I might be going home, tell my wife, look, I hit that place again where I got someone cut me off and I wasn't able to control my reactivity. I beat my horn. I gave him the finger, but I know it really touched that powerless place inside me. And she's like, good figs. You managed to control your fiery Irishman a little bit. That was good, right? Better. You're getting better, right, as you get older. Anyway, so basically the first thing is we have to be able to know how I'm affected and actually do the hard work, the proof of work inside of yourself, not just the being reacting to the world. If you want to make sovereign choices.
It's crazy because then if you are financially unstable and you live in a fiat world, you're also then more likely to be more insecure, and if someone cuts you off or someone honks at you or like whatever happens, you're then also more likely to get angry.
Exactly.
And so this will create then a world where people dislike each other more than like each other.
Exactly. Look, and by the way, look, I'm talking to you, the viewer, the listener, me. Every single person in this fiat financial system is walking around anxiously attached, low-grade anxiety, whether you're a pursuer or withdrawer, or you've got fucking wounding on both sides and you're doing rushing, then collapsing, rushing with productivity, then collapsing. Everybody's ashamed. Everybody was born into a world that like is supposed to be safe. I'm going to thrive. And then like basically what happens with shame, the system has been stealing from you, robbing from you, and you've internalized it and you end up feeling bad about yourself. And if you think it's not you, it's just deeply embedded inside you where you don't know, right? Anyway, okay. So yeah, look, every single person with the ground as that and solid is now going out into the world and interacting with other people where it takes just the slightest little spark, the slightest little stimulus from the outside world to get you in touch with your unmetness, your shame, your anxiety, your woundedness. And then, of course, every human being that gets in touch with their pain protests. Some of us shut down, some of us placate, some of us get argumentative, some of us put people in arm bars and make them submit them, right? Some of us shout at people, some of us get cynical. Some of us tell jokes to minimize what happened. Some of us take a drink. Some of us lose ourselves in work. Everybody's surviving. And so here's the promise, the goal, the way I see it, of Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is the first time in human history that we could have a base layer at a civilization level that is solid, that makes it possible. And I cross my fingers. Like we still have to do the work. It's still a practice, but it makes it possible. It's solid enough that you can then go from surviving in the world and just reacting to actually thriving in the world and being a sovereign individual, sovereign relationships, a sovereign us, sovereign communities, sovereign nations, a sovereign civilization.
Have you been to Switzerland?
I have never been to Switzerland.
I asked that question because Switzerland is the last country, I think like 2000s or so, where they officially got off the gold standard. And it's always interesting when I'm there, the whole country feels slower, calmer, and more stable. I mean, they are in general like a very wealthy country, and they even have MicroStrategy on the central bank balance sheet and like gold, like and all of that. And like there's a Swiss bank account. It's also famous in the US, I think. And it's very interesting. I know Swiss people. I'm in Austria. I'm very close. It's literally the border, and they think more long term, and also their democracy works very direct and way less on the highlights, way less on headlines and on the emotions, more on, of course, the emotions involved. It's like, and of course they're like the headlines also, but not as much as I see it in Austria, as I see it in America. I mean, in America, I think it's even more extreme. But it made me feel, when you were talking, I was like, Switzerland might actually be like a small window of how a Bitcoin world could look like. Obviously, Switzerland also is now on the fiat standard, so it's not perfect, the comparison. But whenever I go there, and for everyone that was maybe at Lugano, the Bitcoin conference, Switzerland hits different.
No, I love that you said that. That actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because this is one of the things I think that is hard to really. Let me explain this way, right? That look, I bought Bitcoin, I traded Bitcoin, right? Then I eventually learned about it, like what it really is, and I held it, right? And now I just hold it, right? I hodl, right? I'm fully Bitcoin maximalist. Believe it solves, obviously it's just a huge important development that human civilization can move to a completely new layer of level of thriving. Right. But the reason I was able to get to this level of conviction was because I didn't take in the Bitcoin information from a performative place inside of me, right? I never thought I was going to be on podcasts. I never thought I was going to be like, oh, I'll write a book. I never thought it was going to be part of this like mind virus of how do you survive in the fiat world, right? So I was able to take it in when I was in parasympathetic activate, like parasympathetic, right? Like, so just rest and digest, just safety. I was able to absorb this information about Bitcoin where it changed, right? At the level of my consciousness, not just I took in the information into my neocortex and I understood what Bitcoin is. It was able to settle in my body where I get to experience the solidity of the ground, the foundation of Bitcoin for my own personal balance sheet, right? Like my family's balance sheet, like, what that actually does, right? And so here's the thing. Solid ground changes, right? Like Bitcoin is foundation. It changes your consciousness over time. If you have a country like Switzerland that, like you said, they're the last country to get off the gold standard, a lot of the nervous systems in Switzerland, the people in Switzerland, the institutions, the culture still is in this consciousness of slowness, right? That we as Bitcoiners from around the world are just discovering inside of ourselves. And then we have this kind of community all over the world where we are developing a similar consciousness to the people of Switzerland. And then again, fingers crossed, we're going to take it even further, right, than the Swiss people. And of course, like, why am I doing this? I want as many people to join us as possible. Like, I grew up primarily in a progressive world. Like most Bitcoiners I meet, they seem to come from the right, or libertarian, or really techie or something, right? But I grew up in Ireland, socialist, like leaning country. I lived and spent most of my adult life in San Francisco, deeply embedded in the left village. I can't for the life of me understand why liberals are so against Bitcoin. It is the best opportunity of actually a fair distribution and fair rules for everybody. And so one of the things I'm hoping is that as a therapist, as someone that, can speak a different language to most Bitcoin communicators that are out there, that I could potentially serve as one element of the bridge to people that, as of right now, they just, as soon as you hear the word Bitcoin, they take their cross out. They're just not even available to hear and understand what it is.
It's so fascinating because I think often about the transition period where now if someone hears Bitcoin, they have something in their mind, even though they might never really researched it because they read a headline or a friend told them something or a neighbor said something and they have something in their mind, even though like they might never really made up their own mind. And so what I found fascinating in my journey in Bitcoin now was that the people that are closest to me are the most into Bitcoin. And with almost every single one of them, I would almost bet, I mean, it's not possible, but I would bet that if I wouldn't be in Bitcoin, they wouldn't also be in Bitcoin. I feel like 1-2 exceptions, they might still have discovered it, but they've discovered it because I discovered it and I ate their ear up till it made sense. And so for me, and I made that tweet just today, is like, if Bitcoin ever fails, it will fail because not of a technical reason, because of a social reason. And I'm thinking a lot about the transition period, how we get more people more smoothly towards Bitcoin, and how we can kind of get those barriers, those Bitcoin, that's only for rich people. Oh, that's only for right-wing people. Oh, Donald Trump likes it. I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like Bitcoin, I guess then. It's like all those like weird connections that are logical, but not really logical, if you know what I mean. It's like
I do, yeah.
I can understand why someone has it, but it's not really logical. How can we how do you imagine the transition period that we are like currently in? Like there's like fiat world, and now we are slowly getting more and more into Bitcoin. Going to be, because there seems to be a lot of friction still with the word Bitcoin in some circles. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC-free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a little sad for me, but I do believe most people will adopt Bitcoin, like, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, right? Like they're going to be buying MicroStrategy preferreds via Chase, or they won't even know, right? Most people will be adopting Bitcoin without knowing, right? And so I don't want that to be true, right? I would love that, through your work and the work I'm trying to do, and others, so many others, right? Like that we can get more people on the actual, like, self-custodying Bitcoin, having agency, sovereignty, on like really having it as a solid ground. And then obviously being able to explain it. A lot of the people that are resistant, like, I don't think it's very hard for people to understand why is having secure attachment in a relationship with a primary other is ground that lets you build the best possible life. Now, again, it's not for everybody. Everybody's still, you don't like go be polyamorous, go like cheat, like, date 5,000 people in the next 10 years. You do you, right? So not like, it's still, everybody still chooses what they want to do in their life, right? But I think it's a fair argument to put forward that being in a long-term, securely attached relationship is the best foundation to build, in terms of love and romance, to build your best long-term life and future. Right? I think that speaks to people. Let's say we just use that principle. Oh, so we need an actual base layer protocol, right? securely attached relationship with a primary other, and then I build layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5 onto that, and I create like a cathedral, right? Bitcoin is the same. It's just, instead of it being secure attachment in my relationship, in my financial, monetary world, Bitcoin is the base layer. Solid. Got the protocol. And now I build my layer 2, layer 3, layer 4 freaking cathedral financially for me and all my future generations, right? You know, the same as I say, reflexive participation for you yourself. Okay, we got like a base layer protocol that I know how to actually be in the world, honor what I'm like, work out what I'm feeling, honor what I'm feeling, taking creative action, right? Based on the truth of what I experienced, not some story I'm telling myself or the world is telling me. So look, we have these different like solid grounds. That's all Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is just solid ground. When I say it's all it is, no offense to anyone. I think it's beautiful, it's amazing, it's incredible, but it gives this solid ground that now human beings can do the work to go from surviving to thriving in a way that we've never had before in human history.
Crazy. I like that, because the thing that you said in the beginning was interesting also, because I unfortunately also have to believe that most people are more likely just to use the layer 2, 3, 4, 5, the same reason as like most people are employed and not start their own company. Like the reason why like most people choose to, and it's like hard to say because like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like they rather take a convenient route, something that the neighbor also does, something that their bank advisor is telling them to do, than go out there on their own in the Wild West and research and like figure out their own, and like go against maybe the opinion of your advisor and family and all the people, and like, I'm right and like you guys are wrong, and like I take Bitcoin self-custody because I don't trust Stretch, like any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I guess it's hard to. I guess the early group of Bitcoiners that we're now in this like small group, like we care about self-custody, we care about like the sovereignty, probably will always be a small minority.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think it's worth to continue. Obviously, I'm trying, right, to deliver the message in a different way from a different angle that will resonate with different people, right? Look, when I work with a couple that are really struggling with each other, so look, firstly, they're coming to see me, right? They're paying me money. They've come to see me. They've actually said, we want you to try and help me, right? Like, it will help us, right? I have to give them the reframe of what's happening in their relationship and how both of you are hurting and both of you are hurting each other, to get them to have empathy and to see the whole system and to earn secure attachment with each other. Like, I have to do it week after week after week after week. It's not like one time, right? It's not like you show them and they're like, yay. Like, I have to like get them to have the experience, like where they really experience in a living, breathing moment where I have empathy for you, empathy for me, empathy for us, and I want to be there for that little one and you that got hurt, and vice versa, and they're loving and holding each other, and then they can do that again and again and again forever. Like, you have to, it's just repetition, right? And so people that are embedded in the fiat financial system, like, it just takes more work than, like, there's a certain segment, obviously, where we're willing to go on to whatever app at the time. What was it, the name of the one? I can't even remember the name of the one that I first bought Bitcoin on. Believe it's still around. I did end up using Coinbase a lot, but I'm annoyed now that I can't remember the name of the other. It doesn't matter, right?
Box was a very early one.
Oh no, I didn't. Although that might be the one that I first tried where I couldn't find my ID. Like, the user interface was really basic, but basically, in order to get someone to start to go, like, to get someone to go from I consciousness to we consciousness in relationship, it takes so much work. It takes so much work, right? And even if they get it for a moment, we have to expand that moment. For someone to go from like there's an alternative to this fiat financial system that you're embedded in. Firstly, you're saying to them, like you're saying to the fish, the water is dirty, the water is dirty, you're swimming in. The fish is like, dude, I don't even know what water is. Like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, what are you talking about? Right? So you got to find creative ways, analogies, help them get it in their experience, their body. Suffering is the best tool we have. If someone is suffering, they're going to be more open to an alternative, right? So the more suffering someone is in, and if we catch them at the right time, then we can actually help them see there's an alternative to the ground you're standing on in the fiat financial system that actually could feel solid. Oh my God, they're more likely to grab for the life raft, right, when they're suffering. And by the way, there's lots of different types of suffering. The guy making $10 million a year could be suffering in this, the way I'm describing, even more than the person making minimum wage. I don't mean that you should have more empathy or more compassion for the person making $10 million a year, but there's some guy making $10 million a year thinks, I should be flying, I should have my own Learjet at $10 million a year, and it's still too expensive for me. They literally could be like, tearing their hair out like I did, right? Like just in neurotic, fugue all day because they're suffering so much. That person actually may be more available for the Bitcoin life raft because they go, I can't keep living like this. Here I am, $10 million a year, and I'm still inside the fiat mind virus. This is insane. This is crazy. That we got to help people not just get the financial information, the protocol level information about what Bitcoin is, the philosophy. We got to get them to feel it in the nervous system. Wait, that's solid ground that I could actually start to thrive, standing upon.
There's this interesting studies that after a certain amount of income or wealth, you don't get substantially more happy. You don't it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference anymore. And it is interesting for me of thinking, because there's like this meme, like there's like the guys that have the Ferrari that sold the company, and because he sold the company, he lost kind of his purpose, and now he's suicidal and is depressed and he's crying in his Ferrari. Right. It's a real thing. And so I'm wondering a lot if we come now to the world where AI and robotics are doing more and more stuff, Bitcoin might actually enable some more abundance for humanity. I'm talking not next year, but I'm talking decades down the road of what is the purpose of human beings if we outsource all the work that we actually need to survive? There's robots that are self-sufficient. They get their own energy with the power plants and their solar things, and humans just can say, hey, I would like to have a house here, and the house is built here. Then you're yeah, I'll need a car. Then they have the car. It's a utopia. It's explaining something, but is there, first of all, do you agree that we are slowly heading towards there? And second, if we're heading there, is there this, what is the purpose for a human being then?
Yeah. I mean, look, I have no idea where we're heading, right? Let's just say that's a possibility, right? That we're heading that direction with the increases in productivity and the benefits that people certainly in the Western world will have, the developed nations will have with robotics and AI. Let's just say that is how it plays out, right? We don't know. Right? Let's say that's how it plays out. Look, I primarily work with the founders, the elite programmers and the venture capitalists and all these lawyers, whatever, of San Francisco, Silicon Valley, right? if you get to a place that you have vocation, all these people, they are where they are because they have vocation. They're not just like, right, they actually love what they do. Like someone didn't create like a really successful startup, right, where it's worth billions of dollars. Like they had to grind. They were willing to work 16 hours a week. Like some part, like they just freaking, this is just what they love to do, right? I've worked with founders that have billions and all they want to do is get started on the next company at the bottom. Nothing. They just wanted to, this is their favorite thing. I just got an idea and I'm now going to grind, right? Like this, they have vocation. Vocation is another type of ground. Like, what is it that is truth in my organism that I'm not doing to perform worth? I'm not doing it to perform value. I have a truth, I have a passion, I have an ability inside of me, and I offer that to the world as my vocation. I would do it for free, right? It's impossible for me not to share it with the world, right? Right. Vocation is going to become extremely important. Like, what's the purpose of human beings? By God, we need more people to know how to do the internal self-development work to actually get in touch with what's my vocation, right? Because it's going to be great if we strip the need for fiat mining away from people. By God, you better find yourself, right? You better get to know yourself and actually be able to live in the world that you can have self-agency, make sovereign choices from a place that you really know what's happening in your nervous system. Okay. I think the other thing I often think about when I work with these incredibly successful couples and individuals in San Francisco is if you've managed, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've managed to get the lower rungs of the pyramid together, right? Like that you have security, right? You got a roof over your head. You have enough money in the bank. It's almost an imperative that you do the deeper emotional work to get to know yourself, right? If you've managed to sort everything else out, right? Like at the level of you're surviving, the next level to thrive is you got to go inwards and get to know yourself and work on having better relationships with other human beings, right? That you can spend more time in true parasympathetic rest and digest. You can take care of yourself. You can have really healthy, good, productive relationships with other people. You can create and give value to the world. All of that starts with doing the healing work on yourself, in your relationship, in your families. Now, I'm a therapist, but I actually think that's going to take, for those of us, let's say, that ever get to live in this utopia that you described, I would love if it's all 8 billion people. But let's say for those of us, you gotta do the work in order to work out who you are so you can deliver the most value to the world to improve the world's circumstances as much as possible.
Yeah, you got to find meaning beyond yourself, I guess, because yourself, you already you have everything already, so like you need something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. That's a really good way to put it. Exactly. Yeah.
Really cool. I have one more random question that I was asking myself 2-3 times when you were mentioning that you're now in the US. So you originally came from Ireland. Why did you move to the United States?
Well, it's actually all the reasons we're talking about, right? I grew up in alcoholic father, heartbroken mother, economic uncertainty, shame, attachment wounding. My parents were civil servants, so I went to private school. Right? I went to one of the kind of quote unquote elite schools in South County Dublin, the rugby playing schools. So I learned how to perform worth, not just really be myself, to fit in, to hide my accent. This accent you hear now, this isn't the accent that I grew up with till 12 years old. This is like a more snobby kind of hybrid now accent, right? The accent I had up until 12 was unacceptable by the social elites. So this nervous system, this organism worked out ways to adapt. I became a stockbroker. You think I became a stockbroker out of inspiration? No, I was someone that was riddled with shame, who I'm going to make money so that I could arrive, that I could get to some arrival point. Then I look after myself, right? Why did I create things? I created things to get attention. I did Fiat creativity. I didn't create things because this is what's true for me. I was born and shaped by this world, this Fiat system, these systems I was born in that told me that you had to perform your worth, and I adapted accordingly. And so as soon as I left college, I graduated from Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland, because I performing worked well enough to be able to get into Trinity College, Dublin. I graduated from the 7th of July to 1994, and I was on a plane to San Francisco on July 8th. So the very next day, right? Always hunting. I could run away from my shame, run away from my anxiety. And San Francisco was appealing, and financial service was appealing because it was a meritocracy. San Francisco, no one's going to ask what school did you go to, what sports you would play. They're not going to place you socially by these questions, right? Your accent gives you away. The school, right? San Francisco, listen, can you do the job? I couldn't give a shit what your education is. I couldn't give a shit where you're from. Can you do the job? And as a stockbroker, as scary as it was having to perform my worth every day I was ranked fairly against everyone else in the office. Every day a sheet was handed out. How much money did you make the day before, the week before, the month before, year to date, and last year? And where you sat in the office was determined by how much money you were making. If you were doing brilliantly, you were in an office. If you weren't, you were in the cubicle, right? And I really liked that system, that gamification. I loved meritocracy. I still do. And so that was a big draw for me, and what I loved about San Francisco and why I left.
Crazy. So you also worked in the TradFi system, so you know the Fiat system even better than I thought you would.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I worked in the financial system as a stockbroker, and then as a employee stock option specialist. I sold like companies like Google, their stock plan administration, so that then every single Google employee had to execute their stock options through Citigroup, right? So I worked in the belly of the beast for a long time. And by the way, one of the reasons why I was able to recognize Bitcoin is because I passed up so many opportunities. Look, even though I developed a relationship with with Google. Now, when I say develop, what did I do? I was persistent and I cold called, right? There's no great skill in the relationship I developed with Google, right? When it was a private company, I was just persistent, right? But even when Google went public, when Facebook went public, when Amazon went public, I bought into, look how overvalued it is. Oh, you couldn't be putting money in that. I passed up enough huge digital networks in my time, so that by the time, what was it then? Whatever number of years later that I saw Bitcoin, the pain of having been stupid and buying into conventional wisdom with Google, with Amazon, with Facebook, not buying them when I first could, when they went public, that actual pain and suffering, those stupid decisions I made by just going along with the herd, because it wasn't that obvious to buy Google when it first went public, right? Because of the way it was priced, the price to earnings and whatnot. But basically, once I saw Bitcoin and I really got what it was, I was not this time, and it made it easier for me to go all in.
I heard that story probably already like 30 times or like multiple. Probably if I would have asked everyone, probably more often than that, where people that have seen the internet grow up and see Google, Apple, Microsoft, and the wealth that they have built, the people that have missed out on that are way more sensitive to Bitcoin now. Like I've heard that story that you just told about, like I've seen the wealth that was built with Google, Apple, Amazon, and all those giants, and I've missed out because I thought they're overvalued. And now with Bitcoin, I'm like, it's the same story all over again. I want to make sure I'm not missing the next one also.
Exactly.
That's yeah, like that. People learn with pain, I guess.
Yeah, and by the way, look, I'm more stupid than most, right? I was the Facebookers and the Googlers and the Amazoners psychotherapist. Like, you know what I mean? You couldn't get like closer, right? Like eventually, like, so yeah, so basically it is true that the pain helps, and then over time, like enough time in the market, enough time in the culture, like, and paying attention, you do develop some form of pattern recognition, right? Yeah.
How did you actually get? I didn't intend to go there, but like I think find it interesting because I think being a stockbroker and being a psychotherapist is like almost like two very different. I don't know, maybe not, but like two different skill sets, two different people that like do that. How did you go from being a stockbroker to being a psychotherapist?
Well, firstly, I would dispel it's not two different skill sets, right? Just interestingly, right? Like, just it's going to sound like a not humble brag. Like when I became a stockbroker, the first thing they'll pay you, which I thought was amazing, they pay you for a month to study for the Series 7, but if you fail, they fire you. Because the Series 7 is the exam, like you have to take the licensing exam to trade financial instruments. Well, I was like, ADHD kid, even undiagnosed. I wasn't very good at sitting down and studying, right? But I'd studied for that, and I think I got 96% on the test, right? I got called in to the manager's office, and I assumed like it was like, Figs, this is amazing. We're so glad to have you. He calls me in and he goes, Figs, we have never had a stockbroker succeed at being a stockbroker that scored in the 90s on the test, right? Intelligence is not what they want, right? It's like, and look, the world has changed, right? Can you take people out for dinner? Are you going to just cold call people relentlessly? Are you like, so it's primarily a relationship business. And so would you go for a beer with the person? Right. And so, look, being a therapist is the same. All of the research is very clear that the method or the model you're using with psychotherapy is not as important as the relationship. The relationship is the number one most important thing. So, I think I'm a much better psychotherapist technically and as a craft than I was a stockbroker. But what I had throughout both of those is I'm an Irish person. I get along with people. We're fun to be with, so yeah, look, having relationships, building relationships is everything. And then, by the way, look, the stockbroking thing was the weird journey. My dad's a therapist, mother's a therapist, sister's a therapist. Listen, I tried to resist the family vocation, but this is, I love what I do. I love sitting with people, helping people have transformational experiences. And being a stockbroker just felt like a continuation of playing rugby or soccer. It was just a game, but a game that I was playing with real families' life savings, real families' retirement account at 23 years old. Like now when I look back, it makes me sick. I had no understanding of what money is, like as a felt experience. I had no understanding what a real balance sheet is, what it means to the people who's own that balance sheet. And I was managing people's money and trading their accounts. Insane. Now, when I look back.
It is. It's crazy. I have one question to ask each and every one of my guests. I feel like we've covered that with you already, but maybe you have something additionally or something else also to tell about that. I asked each and every one of my new guests that are on the show for the first time, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Yeah, I would say what you can learn from me is how to do the personal work, the emotional work, the relationship work, how to think of Bitcoin, especially emotionally, so that you can build a thriving personal life and have true self-sovereignty, not orphan sovereignty where I am me and I don't relate to other people. A single node is worthless. A single unconnected node is worthless. We're much better together, connected, and you got to be able to do the interpersonal work and the intrapersonal work in order to be a valuable node in the community, in the network.
I love that. Really cool. Perfect. Then we have one more end routine, as you might know, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, how important is the TradFi adoption for the Bitcoin adoption? So the TradFi adoption of Bitcoin in the overall Bitcoin adoption, speaking like the Bitcoin treasury companies, the lending products on top of Bitcoin, all the traditional financial instruments that are now experimenting with Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I do think about this a lot. And I got to be honest, I'm nervous, right? Because I'm like a purist, right? Self-custodying, Bitcoin maximalist, right? Um, I'm really nervous. I think the best answer to this, look, it's kind of embarrassing to say it, like I'm a Michael Saylor fanboy, right? Like he's had such a big impact. You know, obviously I watched his interview with you on the show. When I think of Michael Saylor now, obviously I really believe in what he's doing. I think it's incredible, innovative, a living example of what I'm saying. Someone that like felt the pain, did the work, started creating, you know, from adopting Bitcoin to creating digital credit to all of these different preferred, like just mind blowing. But sometimes like sing this song, like the little fear part of me sings the song from Hamilton. There's a line in Hamilton, I can't remember which song, where Eliza Hamilton's sister says to her, "You have married an Icarus. He has flied too close to the sun." I do worry that our, you know, like, it's not the ICOs of 2017 or 2018, right? It's not Celsius and Bankman-Fried. I am worried that the next big kind of blow-up collapse is going to, the kind of big reckoning is going to be this financialization in TradFi of Bitcoin could get ugly. Now that's the fear part of me, but it's just getting beyond my ability to understand everything that's happening. Right? When I say I worked in the financial system, not in those rooms, way above my intellect. These products they're creating, and it does make me worry about. Will we be able to maintain one Bitcoin as one Bitcoin and there will be a fixed supply of 21 million with all the financialization? That's the fearful part of me talking.
Yeah, because like if everyone relies on having Bitcoin proxies, being it a Bitcoin ETF, being it on exchange, being it even in treasury companies or strategies, or even just like lending your Bitcoin out to a exchange to get to being able to borrow against it. At the end of the day, in all those certain circumstances, you do not have access to the base layer Bitcoin. In some of the cases, depending on like borrowing against the Bitcoin, I know you can also do it in a self-custody way, but most ways are not non-self-custodial. You don't even see if the Bitcoin moved. Not only that you don't have access to it, but you can't even see it. Like they don't even give you the public address, no matter the private key. And so you're like, okay, if most Bitcoin are out there centrally controlled and they're all laying with like Coinbase or like some other platforms, there's a risk to it.
Yeah, so this is like, look, my one of my core beliefs is Bitcoin is the first money we've ever created that is resistant to the fallacies of the human heart, right? Like I was saying, we even unbeknownst to ourselves, we're making anxious decisions, we're making shame-based decisions, but Bitcoin stays solid and is immune to all of those. I just want that to continue, right? Like as long as that continues, yes. Right. And I want as many people on board as possible. Right. The financialization makes me nervous and scared. Right. Just because it just opens up a vector that just makes me worried that basic Bitcoin is immune to being affected by human frailty. I hope that it stays immune to being affected by human frailty.
I hope so too. But that's what I said in the middle of the episode, I think, there with like, if it fails, it will be a social one and not a technical one, I think. But yeah, really cool. I enjoyed it a lot, Fix. We've touched on so many different topics on the psychology of it, Bitcoin, hardcore side of it, self-custody, and even TradFi and stockbrokers. It was fascinating how far we got in like not even 1.5 hours. Before I let you go, where can people find you and also the book that might come out in the next weeks or months or this year?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find me is probably Twitter at Figs O'Sullivan. Obviously, no apostrophe, right? FIGS, only one G, O'Sullivan. And my website is empathy with an I on the end, not a Y on the end.com. I couldn't afford empathy with like spelled properly.com. So empathy with an I on the end.com. And then the book, the working title is Sovereign Ground. So, we talked about some of the principles of it here. And the easiest way, there's just a sign up to get the first chapter and be notified, once it gets published on the homepage of empathy.com.
Awesome. Then thank you so much for being on the podcast, Fix. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back.
Thank you. Thank you.
This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.